list, I'm sure you've noticed that beige slip of paper in your program by now. We just would like to encourage you, if you are not on our list and you'd like to know what goes on here in the School of Music, Theater, and Dance, fill that out and we'll get you on our emailing list, and then you will be in the know for everything that goes on in this space and our other performing spaces on campus. So without further ado, would you please welcome this evening's artists. Thank you.
Good evening, and thank you for coming to this lecture recital on the art songs of José Siqueira. My name is Marcel Ramalho, and I am a doctoral candidate at Ball State University. When it comes to the rich Brazilian art song repertoire, most singers think right away in Heitor Villa-Lobos, perhaps the most famous Brazilian composer. Villa-Lobos, alongside other composers such as Alberto Nepomuceno, Cláudio Santoro, and Francisco Mignoni, are some of the main names in recital programs, both in Brazil and abroad. However, I still find it very unusual to see in recital programs or as research topics works by composers from Brazilian regions other than the main musical centers, mainly the southeastern states of São Paulo and Rio de Janeiro. Among the composers in this scenario is José Siqueira, an important figure in the Brazilian music scene between 1930s and the 1970s. Born in Conceição, in the Brazilian northeastern state of Paraíba, on June 24, 1907, José de Lima Siqueira was a famous composer, conductor, educator, and entrepreneur. A bandmaster's son, he entered the National Music Institute in Rio de Janeiro in 1926, where he studied theory, composition, and conducting. His intense activity as an orchestral conductor began in the late 1930s. In 1940, he founded the Brazil Symphony Orchestra, which he directed for 8 years, and he was responsible for the foundation of the Sociedade Artística Internacional in 1946, an organization through which many European and American conductors were able to tour Brazil. José Siqueira also helped found the Rio de Janeiro Symphony Orchestra in 1949. In 1954, he went for further study to Europe, notably in France with Olivier Messiaen, Tony Aubin, and Eugène Bigot. In 1960, the Ordem dos Músicos do Brasil, a professional musicians union, was created under his leadership. With his wife, the soprano Alice Ribeiro, Siqueira visited the United States, Canada, and several European countries to conduct concerts of Brazilian music between the 1940s and the 1970s. José Siqueira was also a member of the Brazilian Academy of Music. Siqueira began to compose in the early 1930s, following a neoclassical style. But like other composers of his time, he was strongly influenced by the modernist movement that occurred in the arts in Brazil in the first part of the 20th century, and its idea of a uniquely Brazilian musical cultural identity. Siqueira went on folkloric expeditions looking for the musical elements of the Brazilian folklore and popular song traditions from several regions of Brazil, and he incorporated those elements into his compositions. Siqueira wrote around 400 works, including symphonies, operas, oratorios, cantatas, songs, concerti, chamber music, and pieces for piano solo. He devised his own Brazilian trimodal and Brazilian pentatonic systems, essentially adoptions of the modes of folk music from the northeastern regions of Brazil, together with their characteristic harmonies and rhythms. His three-act comic opera A Compadecida, composed in 1959 and premiered in 1961, uses folk song themes to characterize the main roles. Siqueira also produced works based on African Brazilian ritual music, such as Xangô, Cavalo dos Deuses, Encantamento da Magia Negra, and Candomblé, a fetishistic oratorio in 13 parts. Although an immense influence in the Brazilian classical music scene between the 1930s and the 1970s, with an extensive compositional output of high artistic quality, praised by critics, fellow composers, and audiences in general, and countless performances in Brazil and abroad, Siqueira's name fell into almost complete oblivion after his death in 1985. Whereas other Brazilian composers continued to have a strong presence both in concert halls and in academia, José Siqueira's name has only recently started to appear in concert programs and academic research again. With this lecture recital and my dissertation research, which focuses on Siqueira's 8 canções populares brasileiras, 8 popular Brazilian songs, I seek to promote interest in the works of Siqueira and more broadly in the rich repertoire of the Brazilian art song. This lecture recital is just an introduction to the art songs of José Siqueira, an output of almost 100 pieces. The songs that we will perform follow the modernist idea of a uniquely Brazilian culture. They paint an insightful picture of the diversity of Brazilian music and culture as a whole, and present a fascinating blend of musical elements from Brazilian folk music, Brazilian popular urban song tradition, native Brazilian and African Brazilian musical traditions, and the Western art song tradition. Natio is one of the songs in the set titled 8 Canções Populares Brasileiras, 8 popular Brazilian songs, published probably in 1939 for voice and orchestra, and in 1975 for voice and piano. The melody of the song is a chant by the Pareci native Brazilian tribe, collected in the 1910s in the northern state of Rondônia. The chant is called Yatoque and celebrates the waterfall on the Juruena River, which the Pareci tribe, in an ancient battle, won over the Waicoacore tribe. Kamaizokulá, a word heard several times in the song, is the name of the waterfall. Here is an excerpt of the chant collected in the 1910s, so mind the quote. Siqueira's treatment of the chant is through 4 different contrapuntal voices. The right hand of the piano plays an ostinato comprised of what can be interpreted as bells, always starting on the weak part of the first beat of each measure, perhaps a reference to Debussy's D'Ingolfft Cathedral or the second movement of Ravel's Gaspard de la Nuit. The left hand provides 2 contrapuntal ostinati, one on the tonic, held each time for 3 whole measures, and due to the meter changes, the stone starts on different places of the measure, sometimes on the first beat, sometimes on the second beat, and sometimes on the third beat of the measure. The other left-hand ostinato is a chromatic line, which always starts on the second beat of each measure. Here on the image you can see G, F sharp, E sharp, F sharp, G, and F sharp. But we're actually going to perform this song one whole step lower than what we have on the slide. The vocal line is minimalistic in character, comprising of only 4 notes, B, C, C sharp, and D, not presented in this order. It's based on the original Pareci melody, but given the character of a lament or prayer, especially when considering the tempo and dynamic markings. Lentamente, slowly, and piano, for the most part, with some crescendo and forte as well. The beginning of the melodic line on the anacrusis and the frequent meter changes are Siqueira's way of respecting the natural stress of words and syllables, making sure the accented syllables are always on the downbeats. The next 2 songs, Luanda and Maracatu, have text by Ascenso Ferreira, a Brazilian poet who lived from 1895 to 1965. He became known for integrating the ideals of the Brazilian modernist movement into poetry, focusing on regional themes from his own state of Pernambuco, a neighboring state of Paraíba, where Siqueira and myself were born. The Maracatu is a cultural manifestation that originated in the state of Pernambuco. It has strong native Brazilian and African Brazilian influence, and it's more associated with the carnival festivities. It encompasses dance, music, and a procession representing historical characters: king, queen, ambassadors, ministers, vassals, court people, slaves, who dance to mainly percussive music with no specific choreography. A Maracatu ensemble is formed by around 40 people playing instruments such as alfaia, agbe, gongue, caixa de guerra, atabaque, ganzá, and zabumba de bombo. And here are some pictures of Maracatu processions and ensembles. It's on the main rhythmic cells where Siqueira pays homage to the Maracatu tradition. In both Luanda and Maracatu, The following basic rhythmic cells are presented in the original form and in several variations. Ta 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 and ta 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 ta. In Luanda, subtitled Maracatu, the main feature is certainly the rhythm, highly syncopated, with clear markings on the score for stress on the second and fourth beats of each measure. The right hand of the piano plays an ostinato that hovers around F9, with a cluster of F, G, and A being alternated with C played in octaves. The form is in a simple repeated binary form, with the vocal line mainly outlined in the key of F major. Interestingly, the piano part brings out tritones, ninth chords, and flavorful chord progressions such as the ones in measures 15 to 18 and 19 to 22. D major with a minor ninth, D major with a minor ninth, G minor seventh, C major with a minor ninth, and F major. The text of Luanda doesn't provide a plot, a storyline, or a poetic idea, moral to be told. It seems to serve simply as a mere accompaniment to the main feature of the song, the rhythm. In Maracatu, the rhythm as the main feature is emphasized even further. Besides the syncopated rhythm and score markings for stress on the weak part of each beat, the song is written on a C score with no specific key signature, but it is filled with accidentals. The piano accompaniment starts with tritones in the left hand juxtaposed with clusters in the right hand, as you can see in the image. Further up, the piece juxtaposes ascending whole tone scales in the left hand with ascending whole tone scales in the right hand. And the song ends with a glissando going from a high E7 down to a low C sharp 2. The text of Maracatu describes two main things. The first is the carnival procession typical of the Maracatu tradition, as in the pictures we saw. This part mentions instruments played in the Maracatu dances, zabumba de bombo, ingonos, kanzás. Songs and sounds one hears, such as banzo chants, fireworks, and it also describes the highly adorned costumes that the dancers wear. The second thing the text of Maracatu talks about is Luanda, the mythical land where slaves would go when they died, while at the same time evoking the slaves' longing for Luanda, the capital of Angola, homeland to many of them.
Salud.
The next three songs have text by Olegário Mariano, born in the state of Pernambuco in 1889. Much like José Siqueira, Olegário Mariano was quite famous during his lifetime, but was forgotten at his death in 1958, and only recently have people started to delve into his works again. Like the poet of the two previous songs, one of the main features in Mariano's poetry is the usage of the northeastern region culture as the main thematic material. The next three songs describe the conflicts lived by the people from the northern and northeastern regions who migrate to the southern and southeastern regions with the hopes of a better life, a theme that has been explored in Brazilian art countless times. Meu Barco é Veleiro is in F major, but it starts with a prelude in the piano that outlines a broken up D minor 9 chord. Siqueira breaks it up to give a wave-like motion with constant 16th notes in ascending motion as a way of depicting the part of the poem that talks about sea, the beach, boats, and fishing. The piano accompaniment presents a rhythmic ostinato in both the left and the right hands. A chromatic moving line, a constant presence in all songs performed so far, is present in Meu Barco é Veleiro as well, in the left hand of the piano, and in the vocal line of section B. The text of the song is filled with references to the poet's home state, the beautiful city of Olinda, with its moonlight beach, the majestic Carmel Church, first built in 1580, and the many species of fish one can find in the area. The form of the song is a typical binary form with a coda, and this classification is made mainly through an analysis of the rhythm, ostinato, and the text shared by the sections. Section A goes from measures 1 to 6. It encompasses the prelude with its wave-like motion and a refrain, and it has the rhythm ostinato in the piano part that you see on the screen. This section A is repeated in measures 16 to 21. Section B goes from measure 7 to 15. The text here talks about the things the persona of the poem longs for. It presents the chromatic moving line in quick 16th notes, and the piano part has a rhythm ostinato seen on the screen. The section B is repeated in measures 22 to 30. The coda presents the rhythm cell of section A, and the vocal part contains long notes repeating the text ya-ya, a tender way one would address a woman. This contrasts with the quick 16th notes and fast text in section B. Benedito Pretinho and Vadeia Caboclinho are in the style of the coco de embolada, a typical folkloric dance and music style originating in the northeastern region of Brazil. The coco de embolada has two parts: the coco de roda, a highly syncopated refrain sung by a group of people in a circle, which alternates with the embolada, a much faster chant sung by a soloist, called quebrador de coco, usually in 16th notes. The melody usually incorporates the 7th scale degree of the mode key of the song. The text of the embolada section is usually improvised by the soloist, and the themes for the text vary greatly. The text of Benedito Pretinho describes the conflict lived by a person, here named Benedito, from the northeastern region who migrates to the southeast with the hopes of a better life, but finds a much different situation from their homeland. The persona complains that in the south, they can't find things that are abundant in the northeast: beans, rapadura, and the viola caipira, a Brazilian 10-string guitar with 5 courses of strings arranged in pairs. The poem uses the sea waves, which come and go, as a metaphor to describe the migrant's situation, who very often ends up returning to their homeland in search of the things they couldn't find and greatly missed in the big cities of the southeastern region, such as São Paulo and Rio de Janeiro. The migrant, however, usually goes back again to the southeast in search of the things they can't find in the place they were born and raised: a job, a steady income, a better life. As in Meu Barco é Veleiro, in Benedito Pretinho, José Siqueira uses the piano in a metaphoric form by representing the sea waves coming and going with an ostinato in the left hand and the constant accents in the right hand of the piano. The form is a typical refrain, verse-refrain, or ABA form of the coco de embolada. The vocal line of the A section, measures 5 to 13, simulates the sea waves through a syncopated descending motion, which then goes up in 16th notes and then back down again. This melodic and rhythmic motion is then repeated as you see on the screen. The B section is where the most characteristic feature of the coco de embolada is present, namely the fast, sometimes tongue-twisting declamation of the text. The right hand of the piano imitates the fast motion of the vocal line, whereas the left hand plays an ostinato of 3 descending 16th notes, which again can be interpreted as the sea waves. The main melody of Vadeia Cabocolinho is actually of public domain and of unknown authorship. Like Benedito Pretinho, it has an ABA form, and the B section has the same text of the B section of Benedito Pretinho, plus additional text talking about other elements that the migrant misses and laments about his homeland. One of them is the sabiá, the rufous-bellied thrush, a songbird that can be found about anywhere in Brazil. The sabiá as a theme and symbol of longing for the homeland was used in countless other poems associated with the modernist movement in Brazil. In a famous poem by Gonçalves Dias, titled Canção do Exílio, or Exile Song, the very first line says, "Minha terra tem palmeiras onde canta o sabiá." My homeland has palm trees where the sabiá sings. In this poem, Gonçalves Dias emphasizes the longing the person feels for their homeland, in the same way Meu Barco é Veleiro and Benedito Pretinho do. The B section of Vadeia Cabocolinho keeps the usual fast 16th note motion of the coco de embolada, but the melodic contour is a bit different from the B section of Benedito Pretinho. There's a great deal of descending melodic motion, which some authors claim to be a characteristic aspect of a chant of coco de embolada. Syncopated rhythms are present in the vocal line and in the piano part.
Casa
The next two songs, A Dança do Sapo and Nesta Rua, are folk songs harmonized by José Siqueira, with some alterations in the main melodic line, as we will see. The frog is a popular character in Brazilian culture, present in superstitions, legends on native Brazilian tribes, children's songs, and in Brazilian popular music. The text of A Dança do Sapo does not seem to have a logical sense as a whole. Rather, it seems to be a college of unrelated sentences. In his master's thesis about specific songs of José Siqueira, Pedro Vacari discusses the character of the frog and its importance and how it has an important place in popular poetic rhetoric. It often appears as a fundamental metaphor when it comes to articulation dexterity and the use of phonetic rhythm as an expressive musical tool. In A Dança do Sapo, that is exactly what happens. There are constant alliterations, which are the occurrence of the same letter or sound at the beginning of adjacent or closely connected words. These happen in lines such as tá na loca, tá na toca, tá na toca, tá na loca, and a para, pega, pega, manda emenda. Now you try it. The tongue twister, as we have already seen, one of the main features of the coco de embolada, is present in this song as well, mainly as a result of the frequent alliterations in the fast tempo at which it should be sung. A Dança do Sapo is in the typical coco de embolada form. The coco de roda, the refrain, is the A section, which alternates with the typical embolada of the B section. However, part A of A Dança do Sapo deviates a bit from the usual features of the coco de roda in the sense that it apparently anticipates the embolada. Excuse me. Alliterations, tongue twisters, and the use of 16th notes are already abundantly present in this section. Both the piano part and the vocal line present another important feature of the folk music from the northeastern region of Brazil, the use of modes. The melody and accompaniment of A Dança do Sapo use the lowered 7th scale degree of D major, which puts the song, therefore, in the Mixolydian mode. It is in the re-exposition of the A section that Siqueira adds a bit more of flavor to his song. The quick ascending leap of a minor 6th, hopefully on a glissando, if the singer is able to sing it quickly, tries to imitate the sound of frog makes. With that small alteration, Siqueira successfully puts to music the character of the frog as seen in the Brazilian popular culture, a defiant, humorous animal. The text and melody of Nesta Rua are from a famous Brazilian nursery rhyme, or Cantiga de Roda, and children usually sing these types of songs while holding hands, forming a circle, and dancing to simple choreography. The text that Siqueira set to music is actually verses 2 and 3 of the original nursery rhyme, and verse 1 is certainly the most famous one, besides being happier in mood than verses 2 and 3. It goes, se essa rua fosse minha, eu mandava ladrilhar, com pedrinhas de brilhante, para o meu amor passar. If this street were mine, I would cover it with brilliant tiles, so that my love could walk on it. The composer maintains the original melody of the nursery rhyme, but when repeating lines 3 and 4 of each verse, Siqueira deviates from that original melody, adding more drama through a high note held on a fermata. The altered 3rd scale degree that comes after the fermata and the following augmented 2nd and half-step intervals enhance the dramatic character of Siqueira's set. The piano accompaniment has some really flavorful chord progressions, such as a sequence of diminished 7 chords in measures 1 to 4. B minor, C sharp fully diminished minor, why is this one here? C sharp fully diminished 7, B fully diminished 7, A fully diminished 7, C sharp half diminished 7. The chromatic moving line is also present in the song, as you can see highlighted in blue in the image. This chromatic moving line is repeated in the interlude and in the postlude. Nesta Rua is a great example of the nationalist trend in Siqueira's music. Here, besides using melody and text that are known throughout the entire country, Siqueira makes melodic, harmonic, and formal references to the seresta, an important popular Brazilian musical style. Seresta is a term that started to be used in the middle of the 19th century in Rio de Janeiro for the oldest tradition of popular urban song in Brazil, the serenade. Very often these popular songs would be accompanied by flute, guitar, and cavaquinho, a small Brazilian string instrument in the guitar family with 4-wire or gut strings.
Olha
A Casinha Pequenina is a well-known Brazilian modinha. Mário de Andrade describes modinha as a popular song which originated in Portugal in the 18th century. The author of the text of the modinha is usually anonymous, and they called it modinhas, for they were more delicate and shorter than the standard art songs. It usually has 2 or 3 verses, but it might also appear as 2 verses plus a refrain or verse alternating with refrain. Meter is usually duple or triple, and there's a preference for the minor mode. As a matter of fact, some modinhas start in the major mode and finish in the minor mode. A Casinha Pequenina was first recorded in 1905 by Mário Pinheiro, and his version has more extended verses than Siqueira's. And throughout the 20th century, other versions appeared, often with different number of verses, as in the recordings by Nara Leão in the style of a bossa nova, Silvio Caldas, Paraguaçu, Bidu Sayão, and Maria Lúcia Godoy. There's even a recording by the famous Italian tenor Beniamino Gigli. A major difference between the recordings I had access to and Siqueira's version is that Siqueira's is the only version that doesn't have an instrumental introduction or interlude in between verses. Siqueira's A Casa Pequenina is in F minor, but the abundant use of secondary 7th chords and the presence of the chromatic moving line throughout the piano accompaniment creates grinding dissonances that do not resolve at the same time or resolve on weak beats, such as the form of C major in measure 7, with 2 suspensions, flat 6 going to 5 and flat 2 going to 1. Foi Numa Noite Calmosa is another modinha of anonymous authorship, recorded by several Brazilian musicians. Siqueira's musical setting makes extensive use of the lyrical and melancholic possibilities of the piano, especially when considering the frequent use of the harmonic minor scale. The song is divided in 3 sections, each of which consists of a piano prelude and the original melody of the modinha. When put together, the overall structure is as follows: introduction, A, interlude, A, interlude, A. 2 important musical structure designs are present throughout the entire song. The first one is sequencing, something that goes back to Bach and before. In the prelude, the left hand of the piano outlines thirds in an ascending sequencing motion, then goes down in stepwise motion. The same thing happens in the right hand of the piano in the interlude before the second verse, and in the interlude before the third verse. The second important musical structure design is the descending bass line, common since Monteverdi's time to depict lament, which appears in the accompaniment of the third verse.
Amor
Vasco Maris, in his book A Canção Brasileira de Câmara, the Brazilian art song, considered today an authoritative source on the history and repertoire of the Brazilian art song, says that one of the high points in José Siqueira's compositional output is a song set with poems by Manuel Bandeira, one of the main contributors to the modernist movement in Brazil in the beginning of the 20th century. The two final songs on this program, Acalanto and Madrigal, have texts by Manuel Bandeira. Both songs also allude to the seresta, especially when it comes to the guitar-like treatment of the piano accompaniment. Acalanto is in an altered AABA form. In the traditional AABA form, also known as 32-bar form or ballad form, each of the four sections has 8 measures. The second A section may have slight changes from the first A section, and the B section often presents a contrasting harmony or feel to the A section. In Siqueira's song, the second A section has a shorter piano introduction, making it a 6-bar section, and the B section lasts for 6 measures as well. Another different formal aspect of this song with regards to the standard AABA form is that Siqueira adds a coda after the last A section. When all this is added together, we have 29 bars instead of the usual 32 bars for the standard AABA form. As is usual in the standard AABA form, the main melody in Acalanto is maintained throughout each A section, and besides the main melody, the A section is also characterized by a 2-bar piano ostinato. In the B section, when the persona mentions that the day is about to dawn, but how cold the air still is, Siqueira adds more expressivity to the score through a wider dynamic range, piano, mezzo forte, forte, pianissimo, in a flavorful chord progression, E minor 7, C major 13, E minor 7, B major 7, C major, A sharp fully diminished 7, A major 7, and finally D major, the key of the piece. Yes. In Brazil, Madrigal is certainly the most performed song by José Siqueira. It can be divided in 2 sections, A, measures 1 to 24, and B, measures 25 to 36. The A section, in its turn, can be divided in 3 subsections. The A1 section is an instrumental prelude that establishes the key of E minor. In this prelude, the melodic sequence in the left hand, with arpeggios followed by stepwise motion, is a clear reference to the guitar traditionally used in seresta groups in the beginning of the 20th century. The vocal line of the A2 section, measures 9 to 16, is comprised mainly of stepwise motion. However, the descending leap of a minor sixth on the word kai, to fall, in measure 11, and the ascending leap of a diminished 7 in measure 13 on the word ascendi, to rise, ascend, are important in highlighting the meaning of the text. Another important feature of the song is that the vocal line usually starts from the upbeat, which can be a rhetorical reference to the size of the persona of the poem. The B section is comprised of a piano interlude which references the harmonic and melodic material presented in the prelude, and the slightly different return of the vocal line and piano accompaniment of the A1 subsection. This modification happens in the last 2 measures of the song as a way of preparing the conclusion of the piece. was an extremely important figure in the Brazilian music scene between the 1930s and the 1970s. His songs, in my opinion, present a fascinating blend of musical elements from Brazilian folk music, Brazilian popular urban song tradition, native Brazilian and African Brazilian musical traditions, and the Western art song tradition. It is my hope that other musicians and scholars will take interest in his works, for they paint an insightful picture of the diversity of Brazilian music and culture as a whole. Thank you.